The fall. The day the Threx came, the sky burned. It began with a ripple in the clouds, a shimmer that stretched from horizon to horizon like the reflection of sunlight on water. People thought it was an aurora at first, a beautiful, strange phenomenon for a summer afternoon. Then the ripple broke, and ships the size of cities emerged. They didn't come in ones or twos. They came in hundreds. The first wave hovered silently above the oceans, their hulls matte black and covered in glowing, runic patterns that seemed to crawl and change. The second wave entered low orbit, blotting out the sun over entire continents. The third wave began firing. London's skyline lit up in white fire as the top of the Shard disintegrated. Sydney's harbour boiled. New York's power grid collapsed in a spray of sparks. And all across the world, people heard the same message in their minds, not in words, but in meaning. Kneel, serve, live, resist, burn. I was standing in the courtyard of the Royal Military Academy when it hit me. One moment I was watching cadets scramble to muster. The next, the entire East Wing was gone, replaced by a crater. My ears rang. My vision swam. And through the smoke, I saw them for the first time. Threx shock troopers. They were tall, easily 8 feet, with segmented armor that pulsed faintly, as if it were alive. Their heads were narrow and elongated, with 3 eyes arranged in a triangle. Their weapons looked like living creatures themselves, writhing slightly as they fired streams of green plasma. We tried to fight. God help us, we tried, but rifles barely scratched their armor. Rockets bounced off the shimmering barriers that fled around them. Within minutes, the academy was overrun. I saw friends, people I trained with for years, cut down where they stood. I don't remember exactly when I was captured. One moment I was firing from behind a toppled statue of Wellington. The next there was a flash, a sudden pull in my chest, and I woke up bound in a containment pod. The weeks after the invasion were worse. The Threx didn't annihilate humanity outright. They were methodical. They took control of major cities, one by one, installing their governors, pale, insectoid creatures with long, spindly limbs and voice boxes that hissed like steam vents. Puppet governments sprouted overnight, staffed by collaborators who traded their souls for safety. I was sent to Sector 17, once called London. The Thames was choked with alien machinery, massive siphons that drew water up into the sky for reasons we still didn't understand. The air stank of chemicals. Drone patrols floated overhead, their cameras swiveling constantly. Anyone caught breaking curfew was processed, a word that meant you never saw them again. The camps were worse. I worked in Rizzo's Facility 9, stripping copper wiring from old buildings. We worked until our hands bled, then worked some more. The Threx overseers didn't speak to us unless it was a given order, and their living weapons, the writhing rifles, were never far from our backs. At night, in the rusted shells of what used to be homes, we whispered, rumors of uprisings in Africa, stories of a submarine crew in the Pacific who refused to surrender and kept striking supply convoys, tales of someone or some group out there planning to take Earth back. At first, I didn't believe it. Hope felt dangerous. One evening, while scavenging wiring from a bombed-out hospital, I saw something I wasn't meant to see. A Threx governor, tall, skeletal, with chitin like cracked marble, was meeting with one of the human collaborators. They stood in the ruins of the old surgical wing, guarded by 2 shock troopers. I ducked behind a collapsed wall, straining to hear. The human was a man in a clean suit, his hair slicked back, his voice oozing false confidence. The construction proceeds ahead of schedule, Excellency. The array will be complete within the month. The governor clicked its mandibles. It must. Without the array, the harvest will be incomplete. The core must be reached. The core? The word stuck in my head. Before I could hear more, a patrol drone whirred too close. I had no choice but to retreat into the rubble and vanish. But the seed had been planted. The Threx weren't just stripping Earth for resources. They were looking for something buried deep beneath us. 3 nights later, everything changed. The camp alarms blared, a deep, resonant tone that rattled my bones. Drones swarmed the streets. Shock troopers moved with terrifying speed toward the east perimeter. From my barracks window, I saw the cause, an explosion blooming like a second sun. The resistance was real, and they were here. Gunfire, both human and alien, echoed through the camp. Smoke poured into the night sky. In the chaos, a figure burst through the barracks door, wielding a battered human rifle and wearing scavenged Threx armor over their shoulders. "Move if you want to live," she barked. Her name was Aisha Vance, though I wouldn't learn that until much later. All I knew then was that she moved like a soldier, fought like a devil, and had no fear of the Threx. We ran through burning streets, ducking plasma fire, weaving through alleys the aliens hadn't mapped. We didn't save everyone. Some were cut down before they made it to the breach in the perimeter wall. But those of us who did escape followed Aisha into the tunnels beneath the city, old maintenance shaft the Threx couldn't navigate easily. There, by flickering lamplight, I saw the faces of the resistance for the first time. Men and women of every age and color, armed with whatever they could carry, from alien rifles to homemade explosives. And when I told them what I'd overheard about the Corps, every single one of them went silent. Aisha was the first to speak. Her eyes, sharp and calculating, didn't leave mine. "Then it's worse than we thought," she said. She looked around at the others. "We can't just hit their supply lines anymore. We're going to have to go right for the throat." That night, for the first time since the Threx came, I felt something I hadn't dared to feel in years. Not just hope. Purpose. Sparks in the dark. 20 years. That's how long it had been since the Threx came and burned our sky. Long enough for an entire generation to grow up never knowing a free Earth. Long enough for alien structures to root themselves into the soil like cancer. Long enough for humanity to learn how to fight back, properly. Life in the Resistance was a constant balancing act between survival and defiance. Every outpost had its own rules. No light above ground at night. No broadcast on unsecured frequencies. And never stay in one place long enough for the drones to triangulate your position. We had become shadows in our own world. The network had grown beyond anything I could have imagined when Aisha first pulled me from that camp. Back then, it was a scattered collection of cells, each fighting in isolation. Now it was a coalition, a web of fighters, smugglers, hackers, and saboteurs stretching across every continent. The Threx controlled the skies, but the ground was ours at night. My unit operated in what used to be Central Europe, a place the Threx called Extraction Zone 9. They'd turned it into a vast industrial scar, a sprawl of refineries, fusion pits, and harvest towers, all guarded by the alien equivalent of a standing army. Our mission that night was supposed to be routine. Hit a power transfer station, take out a few supply drones, and vanish before the Threx even knew we were there. But the Coalition had a saying, "Routine is the fastest way to die." We moved under a moonless sky, the air heavy with the smell of ozone from the alien reactors. My team, 6 of us in total, wore camo ponchos lined with alien polymer to confuse heat sensors. Ahead, the power station glowed faintly, its shield emitters pulsing in slow rhythm. Myra, our tech specialist, slid up beside me, shield cycling every 4.2 seconds. "That's our window. Hit it clean. We're ghosts. Miss it. We're fried." I nodded. Timing was everything. We crept closer, boots sinking into mud where the Threx machines had poisoned the ground. The shield flared, dimmed. Now. We slipped through like whispers, planting charges on the station's conduit nodes. In 30 seconds, the whole thing would blow. Except it didn't. The moment the last charge armed, every shield emitter in the valley lit up. Not just the stations. All of them. Myra's eyes went wide. "That's impossible." "We're not." The night erupted in green light. The ambush was surgical. Drones swarmed from above, firing cutting beams that turned stone to molten glass. Shock troopers emerged from the dark like predators, their weapons already spitting plasma. "Fall back!" I shouted, but the retreat path was already sealed. We fought anyway. That's what resistance fighters do when the walls close in. I dropped 2 drones with a burst from my stolen Threx carbine, rolled behind a slag heap, and popped a signal flare. Not for us, but for the others. Because if we were going down, we weren't going alone. The flare burned crimson, casting warped shadows across the battlefield. 10 seconds later, the ground shook. From the ridge to our east, 3 shapes emerged, massive, boxy, and crawling on thick treads. Coalition wore rigs, each one built from the skeletons of old mining vehicles and loaded with enough firepower to make a Threx gunship nervous. The first rig fired its deck gun, the recoil kicking like a giant's fist. The shell slammed into the trooper's position, sending alien armor and green ichor spraying. The other two rigs laid down covering fire while our unit scrambled aboard. We didn't stop to watch the power station burn. The rigs weren't there to win a fight. They were there to break it open just long enough for us to run. An hour later, we were deep in the Undercity, a labyrinth of old subway tunnels the Threx couldn't navigate. That's where I saw him again. Draven Holt. He was older now, hair silver at the temples, but his eyes were the same, sharp, calculating, and always 2 steps ahead. I'd met him years before during a joint up with the North American cells, back when the coalition was still a fragile idea. He wasn't a soldier. He was an architect of rebellion. You were supposed to be invisible tonight, Draven said, his voice low but carrying in the narrow tunnel. Instead, the Threx were waiting for you. They knew our route, I said. This wasn't random. He nodded grimly. It wasn't. We've got a leak. The word settled on the group like a stone in water. A leak meant someone, maybe even someone we trusted, was feeding the Threx our movements. And if they knew about the power station op, it meant they knew about other things. Dangerous things. Draven unrolled a holographic map on the tunnel wall, its light casting pale blue across our faces. We don't have time to hunt for the traitor. The Threx are accelerating construction of the array. My stomach tightened. I hadn't heard that word since London, all those years ago. You know about the core? I asked. He looked at me sharply. I do, and I know what they are digging for. The map shifted, zooming to a point deep beneath the Earth's crust. There's something buried here. Not a weapon. A seed. The Threx call it the World Heart. It's the root of their harvest technology, a living machine that can strip a planet bare and convert it into raw energy. If they wake it. He didn't need to finish the sentence. We all knew. If the Threx woke the World Heart, Earth wouldn't just die. It would be erased. That was when Draven said the words that would define the rest of the war. We're done playing defense. We're going to take it from them. The next weeks were chaos. Coalition cells worldwide began hitting Threx infrastructure harder than ever, not to win, but to pull attention away from a one-op that mattered. Our op. We were going to infiltrate the array site, plant a no-core device, and destroy the World Heart before the Threx could activate it. It sounded insane. The site was one of the most heavily fortified locations on Earth. Shield domes, drone swarms, atmospheric patrols, the works. But Draven had a plan, and if there's one thing 20 years of war teaches you, it's that the impossible only stays impossible until someone does it. 2 nights before we were set to move, I found Aisha alone in the rig bay, stripping her rifle. She didn't look up when I approached. 20 years, she said quietly. 20 years of bleeding, hiding, fighting. I thought I'd be ready for this moment. And you're not. She smirked faintly. Oh, I'm ready. I just didn't think it would feel this final. It's not the end, I told her. If we pull this off, it's a beginning. She glanced at me then, her eyes hard but boning. Then let's make damn sure we pull it off. When we rolled out to the Undercity for the last time, every fighter in the rig convoy knew we might not come back. But no one hesitated, because this wasn't just another op. This was our planet, and we were done hiding in its shadows.